All right, I'm here today with my friend Emily Scott. Emily is the executive director of the Oklahoma Autism Center Foundation. I get that all right?
Yes, it's a mouthful, but you did great.
Uh, um, I usually start by how we met, and I'll be honest, I don't remember exactly. The first time I can remember hanging out with you, so to speak, was maybe when we were doing the autism bill. Um,
Yes,
do
that's my
you
recollection too.
Okay, good. So, and was that 2016?
It was. And in fact, I had to look it up because in some ways it feels like yesterday, but in other ways it feels like a million years ago. So I had to confirm my dates.
Yeah. So 2016, I remember you guys being in the conference room at the Capitol and going in there and meeting everybody. And I knew some, but there were some that I hadn't met before. And then we did our thing around. But yeah, that's the first time I remember meeting you. And then we've passed a lot, and
Yeah,
especially lately.
I know. We're so grateful for you for joining our strategic planning implementation committee. It's really great to have your voice on that.
I'm honored to be a part of that. I mean, it, I always feel like I'm kind of the voice for people in rural Oklahoma. You
You
know.
know, I'm glad you say that. I mean, it's great that you own that because we really kind of look to you for that too. That perspective is so critically important, and what you're doing in your neck of the woods is really amazing and unique to the entire state. And so, yeah, I mean, we're so glad to have that kind of voice and kind of a perspective. And you're just an amazing advocate. You do such a good job. So
Well,
you
thank
inspire
you.
all of us.
Thank you. Well, I truly appreciate that. But let's get into you. I want to talk about you. Tell me your story. How did you get started? Where you're at today?
So, well, I am the mom of three kids. I have a one who's going to be a sophomore, and then one who's going to be a senior, and one who's going to be a sophomore in college. And the one who's going to be a senior, Jimmy, has autism, and he was diagnosed at the age of 3. I had no idea what autism was. We didn't really have a family history that I knew of. This was very, very new to the diagnosis. And so that was kind of how my journey got started with autism. And I was one of those moms who, went through the whole like cycle of, what's going on, sort of, your expectations are different. And, there was a little bit of denial and misunderstanding. And, we tried lots of things, but my whole journey to get to where I am today and my job today and how we met, was after I went through that process, I really kind of figured out quickly that I wasn't someone who wanted to really do the support group thing. I mean, I love that, but for me, I wanted to go, knock on doors and talk about the issues with our legislators and advocate. And so that's kind of where I found my therapy for autism. And so pretty soon after that, I started my advocacy journey through my son's school and through the state legislature. And that brought me to where we met in probably 2015, 2016 with the autism insurance bill.
So something interesting you talked about there, and I think we all go through that, is the stages. You have a lot of people don't realize that when we've been advocating for this long. Connor's 15, so we had a diagnosis at 3, but it probably took me 2 years to get through the denial stage and then realize I'm not doing my son any good by sitting here saying I was basically telling this expert, that that wrote on this piece of paper that I do have a diagnosis, that they didn't know what they were talking about. And when I got past that point, everything just opened up. It was crazy.
Yeah.
But I think we go through that stage, that denial, and then you go into a full guns a blazing almost, research mode, and then how can I help him, and then how can I help others. And that's, I've seen that a lot, especially with the advocates that we talk to. Do you kind of see the same thing?
Absolutely. And I was trying to find the right word for those stages because I wouldn't call it grief, but I think it's really just acceptance. It's just, and when it's such a new thing, and and every parent has expectations of their child, and then, reconciling that and figuring out what to do. I mean, it's definitely a process, but yeah, we see that all the time, especially, in our organization, we through the Oklahoma Autism Center, we have a large focus in early education, and our team is doing a phenomenal job at diagnosing kids even way earlier than 3. Back in the day, 3 was like the gold standard. We were really early, and then now we're catching him at 15, 18 months, and so I think that really is hard for parents because it presents in such a different way, and in a lot of the symptoms can be easily excused away. And so it takes time, and it takes a progression, I think, too, with the diagnosis for parents to fully reach that stage of acceptance. And that's completely normal. No one should ever feel any guilt about that. I mean, it's normal for everyone I've met. So
So tell me about Jimmy. What's he like?
he's amazing. I mean, I am so lucky. That kid he really sparkles. I mean, he really has the best, brightest smile and such a positive attitude. I'm so, so lucky with that kid. He was nonverbal up until the age of 5. He had a few words here and there, but definitely was not putting any kind of sentences together. Would you just say really the same 2 or 3 words over and over? You'd ask him his name and he'd say yes. I mean, he knew he was supposed to respond, and he knew that yes was, pretty much an acceptable answer most of the time. But then once we got some really great therapy, he just took off from there, and now he'll talk your ear off. And he's really excited about his senior year, although mom's a little bit nervous about, what that's going to look like with the virtual that our school district's doing the first 9 weeks, and wondering how that's going to go. But he's just really amazing. I'm so proud of him. He's come so far, and he has a really great attitude for all the things that I've put him through. I mean, we did so much therapy, so much work. So I always like to say he's the hardest working kid I know, and he truly is. I mean, he was so dedicated during that time.
Yeah, it's something you said there. So when we get parents that come in, and I call them newly diagnosed parents, because that's basically. But when we get somebody that has a new diagnosis, one of the first questions we get is what should we be doing for our son or our daughter or whatever. And I always go to the 2 things, speech therapy and occupational therapy. Have those evaluations done, see how, because if we can get those as early as possible, those are the 2 main things. Would you agree to that, and what would you add to that even?
I completely agree with that. Behavioral therapy is there, and the therapy has come a long way, and it's really kind of evolved. And I've seen it be used with kids at all different, levels of autism, if you will. And so, that is an option if a parent is experiencing behavioral challenges, or even things like getting them school ready. One of the biggest things that parents worry about is potty training. So ABA can be really effective for things like that, and getting kids ready to, get out into society, because that's where we want them to be, in inclusive classrooms and amongst their peers. I feel like that's really where they learn the best. And so that's kind of the approach that we took, is that, we had Jimmy in a regular ed preschool from the beginning, but did lots of speech therapy, occupational, and even physical therapy for a time. Because like some kids on the autism spectrum, he had a lot of coordination problems and low muscle tone. And so we only had to do that for a couple of years, but it made a big difference for him.
Yeah, I think from what I've seen, ABA is great, and that's a third one. I don't mention that a lot because we have a hard time finding it here in rural areas, which is something we've discussed before, and we're kind of working on. I thought that the autism bill would kind of open that up a little bit, and I still think it will, but I still think we've got a little ways to go to get into the rural areas with it. So
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it does take time. I heard some great news from a local clinic just last night of some really exciting rural cities that they're going to branch out to. And I was so glad to hear that and these are far outside the metro. So the expansion is continuing and it's becoming more deliberate. But yeah, I mean, Oklahoma overall, I mean, has a provider shortage, I think, for every type of therapy, but especially um, applied behavioral analysis, because only in 2016 did we start to see insurance reimbursement for providers for that. And although that continues to expand, and we were so thrilled that that Sooner Care has now added that into their plan, we still have work to do with Health Choice, and Health Choice is the state employee plan of our largest employer in the state of Oklahoma, which is the state of Oklahoma. And so, as we continue to expand coverage, I think we'll be able to see more providers throughout the state, hopefully. And so those new clinics I heard about, exciting places, and I hope that it will grow, because I remember going to a listening session when we were doing our 10-year strategic plan with Ed Long, and it was just incredible hearing parents in Lawton talk about having to go to Texas to get therapy. I mean, that's a shame, and we're going to continue to work on that until it's fixed.
yeah, and we're seeing that again. We're in Poto. I think the next closest is Oklahoma City or Tulsa. Although I think something just opened up in Fort Smith, which is right across the border from us. So that's promising. But then we have to deal with Sooner Care and insurance and across the border and things like that. But we're
Yeah,
working on it. I mean, it takes time.
it does.
Yeah. So tell me what the Oklahoma Autism Center Foundation, what do you guys do? I know, but tell everybody else.
Sure, yeah. So we support the Oklahoma Autism Center that's been in existence since 2007. It is a part of OU Health Sciences Child Study Center, and that's actually where my son was diagnosed. And so that's kind of how my connection came about to where we are today. And in 2011, a group of parents who had their children be a part of one of our programs, Early Foundation, formed the foundation to support the center. And so there's been sort of an evolution with that as well, because it first kind of started out with supporting the classrooms beyond what federal and state grants could do for these research projects that were started by Dr. Bonnie McBride. But then, in 2015, when the state was experiencing a big budget crisis, it was really kind of eye-opening for the center, because one of their largest programs that they have is funded through the State Department of Education, and that was at jeopardy of being cut altogether. So it was really a scary time. And from there, the foundation sort of formed in earnest and added a board of directors and started thinking about grant making for the Oklahoma Autism Center to sort of diversify their funding and look for more sustainable ways to make sure that they go on, but also reach more families and children. So I was part of the foundation. I actually joined the board in 2017. And so when you were saying earlier, it was funny how you were with that professional who gave your son the diagnosis. Well, I was actually that way with Dr. Bonnie McBride, who is the the head of the center. She was a part of my son's diagnostic team at OU Child Studies. And when I came back into the program, when a friend had invited me to join the board, it was kind of like, oh, I wonder if she's going to remember me. Where I was like, no, this is that. I had every excuse in the book. So, it's kind of funny how life comes full circle like that. But so, in 2017, though, we really started adding a lot of grant funding and a lot of fundraising through events. And now here we are today, and we've got our own beautiful new office space, and we're looking at ways that we can serve the community beyond what they're able to do at the center, and really focusing on advocacy and awareness, where our board of directors felt like there needed to, be an organization to really take that on deliberately in our state. For all families and children. And so that's what we focus on with the foundation now. We have 11 board of directors, several very active committees, but so far I am the only full-time staff person.
Let's talk about, you've been advocating about how long?
Oh gosh, I would say probably since 2007.
Okay. And in that time, surely you've had a lot of mentors over the years. Who are some of your mentors? Who do you look up to?
Uh, some of the first people that come to mind is, gosh, definitely Melinda Laufenberger and Dee Blows. They were some of the first autism moms that I met, and always made a big impression on me. Wanda Felty, meeting her at the Capitol, she really is like such a rock star, and she inspires me all the time. I wish I could just, follow her around for like a couple weeks and just, learn all of that, just absorb all of what she knows. She's really incredible. And then,
Isn't it weird? I'm sorry to cut you off, but isn't it weird how, like, in 5 minutes around Wanda, you can learn more than anybody? I mean, it's just amazing.
She really is. I mean, she really is. And then, other mentors are just moms, just like myself. The journey with autism is so different for every family, and the challenges they face is so unique. And so I've really just learned a lot of things from fellow parents around me that I would consider mentors. And I mean, we really have such a great community here, I feel like, in Oklahoma, and I've learned a lot from so many. It's cool to be a part of this every day.
Yeah, you talked about Dee. I'm still working on her to get her on one of these. She's amazing, and David. Every time I'm at a conference, I have to go talk to David because he's just an amazing person. We've got his artwork up in the office here too, and
Yeah, we do
so
at the center. I know he is really incredible. And Judy Pluez too. I mean, she was really amazing, and I'm really inspired by our directors at the Oklahoma Autism Center and all that they do. Their passion for early education and capacity building. It was such a unique approach to me that I've really kind of latched onto that and feel really strongly about that kind of advocacy approach. And so through their mentorship, I mean, I've really learned what it means to, build the capacity of our existing services and connect people to resources. And so I'm really thankful for Dr. Bonnie McBride and Diane Mathis and Margaret Brigant. They've been really a big influence on me as well.
So over the years, you've had a lot of advice given to you. You've had a lot of advice that you've given out. Tell me maybe the best piece of advice you've ever heard, and maybe the best piece of advice that you give out, or something you give pretty commonly.
Can I have the same answer for both of those questions?
Absolutely.
Because this was given to me, but I think it's one of the things that I always repeat, and that is your child is not the diagnosis. like Jimmy's Jimmy. Jimmy is not autism, you know, and so to always look at him first as who he is, my child, the person Jimmy. And autism does not define him, and autism doesn't define any individual on the spectrum. Unless they want to take that on as a defining characteristic, of course. But I first, you know, always I always look at him and think, okay, what does he need? Not maybe what this website or this textbook or this person who had success with this. You know your child best, and don't let them be defined by the diagnosis. Don't ever set limitations. Don't let anyone else set those limitations. I've had my mind blown continuously over the years. So, just keep a positive attitude and keep plugging on, and remember, they're not autism. They're whatever their name is.
Yeah, I think, Patrick Schwartz, I don't know if, did you go through Partners in Policymaking?
No, I haven't yet.
Okay. Well, Partners, so Patrick Schwartz, do you know who that is?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So I think he said it best. He's amazing too. But when he said, it's just a trait that they were born. It's like some people are born with freckles. Some people are born with red hair. Connor was born with autism. He just happens to have autism. And I always think that's a great perspective, because nobody asks for this, but it's what you have. And so.
Absolutely. And it's such a simple thing to say. I mean, I wish I had like something more profound, but that's really it. It's like when you're going through those stages of acceptance, like we talked about in the beginning, you really kind of tend to hyper focus on things that you might read about the autism diagnosis, and you might just set your expectations too low. And I would just discourage parents from doing that, and just really, focus on the child, and get around people who, can help you with that, because the community is huge.
Absolutely. Well, I have enjoyed this, and I want to tell you that I appreciate you. I appreciate our friendship and our, working together with you on this committee and other things that we've been together on. So I truly, truly appreciate you and for doing this. I applaud you as an advocate and as a mother, because you're a strong advocate and a strong mom. I can tell that. And so thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you. This was an honor. When you asked, I mean, truly, it was an honor. And so thank you for all that you do. And I really appreciate you. And thanks for being on our committee. I mean, that's so wonderful. It's a big one, but you have a great voice.
Well, it's the least I could do.